I'm going to show you how to change a starter motor on a TJ Magna. It's a 3.5 litre V6 engine. It's a bit awkward to get to, but it should be okay. A helpful start is actually having the new starter motor with you. It's good for a couple of reasons. It shows you where to look for the bolts. So there's one bolt going to be there, there's one on the other side. So it's got two bolts to hold this starter motor in, and shows you also where to undo the power from. And there's a spade terminal under there for the starter solenoid trigger, which you'll see. Just so you also know how to unplug it and sort of just where things are. Certainly makes it easier. And obviously you will need a new starter motor if your one has stopped working. First thing to do is to disconnect the battery, because there's a live positive wire going to the starter motor. And if that shorts out, you'll get lots of sparks and you could start a fire potentially, or explode your battery if it shorted that wire out, because it's quite a heavy cable. So just take the negative terminal off, and then that's fine, that's done. So as you can see, I've taken the negative terminal off, and it's just sitting down there. It's fine, as long as you don't knock it back up and it hits the battery, because then that would cause problems also. But it is in a position where it could get knocked, so if you feel unsafe about that, wrap it up in a rag or something, or disconnect the positive one as well, and you could remove the whole battery. As you can see, I've already removed the air cleaner snorkel and the battery cover, because yesterday I had to determine what the fault was with the car. Again, they come off quite easily. There's just, you'll see the plastic trim clips for the snorkel there and there, and you'll also see the plastic clips that went into there, and the two at the front, and the battery cover comes off as well. The first thing that I should do is undo the cables off the starter motor, but I'm just curious to see how hard it is to unbolt the starter motor. Now, one bolt is, I'll show you the starter motor to begin with, if I can find it. Yes, I can see it there. I'll try and point to it for you. That's it there. I'll touch it. That's it there. And this is the cable going to it, which has got to be undone. You can see the red sock there. I've already pulled it off, so I can undo the bolt. Now one bolt, if I can find it, is on this side, and you can just see it there. Let's see if I can get my hand down there, right on the end of my finger, sort of pointing to it. There, it's a 14mm, so incredibly difficult to get to, really. 14mm. I've got a ratchet here ready. I'm hoping this is going to get to it. So you'll need a decent socket set, because the cheap socket sets have a tendency to break sockets. So I'm going to try and loosen that off. If you loosen it, don't undo it all the way. Just loosen it only. We'll undo it at the end, because we've got to loosen both bolts off. Make sure everything's coming off nicely. It'll be the same procedure for putting the new one in. You won't tighten one bolt up without putting another bolt in. You always just tighten, make sure all the bolts go in first, which is not too hard in this case because it's only two bolts. But I'll do that. Alright, I have loosened it off. I have used this. So socket on a ratchet, no extension needed, although it does look like you might need a small extension. This fitted perfectly. How I got to it is, I'll try and show you. Down there, looking over this hose with a torch and onto the bolt, which is very hard to see. I can't even see it. That's because it's under the starter motor. But yeah, that's down there somewhere. If you get a torch, it's just there. Yeah, on it now. That's it there. Well, it's hard to see because the camera's blurry. That's not too bad. That's it there. So you get a little bit of movement. The more teeth on your ratchet, the better it is, because you'll be able to... I've only got the movement of 2 clicks on this ratchet. So loosen that off, don't undo it. I'm going to undo the power cables next. There's a thick power cable and again just the spade terminal that triggers the starter motor. Just while I was thinking about it, the nut on the back of that, it wasn't loose, but I still could tighten it a small amount. So these are good things to check, because you don't want this coming loose once it's on the car, when you could have just tightened up here. Alright, let's go under the car and undo the starter motor cables. Okay, I've jacked the front of the car up so I get a bit more access. This is as far as I can push the car into the shed, because obviously it won't start. Never get under a car supported by a jack only. If you are a mechanic, hopefully you wouldn't be watching this video and you already know how to do it, but if you're someone like me who just does their own things to their own cars and just tries to get things done without having to go to a mechanic, yep, jack your car up as normal. Don't get under it unless it's supported by a jack stand. I don't have any jack stands, so I've used a, what's that thing, a ramp. So I'll get under the car. That ramp's actually, if the car falls, it'll actually hit the subframe and in the middle. So that's fine. I'm happy with that at least. At least if they get squished a bit, I might get a knock on the head. That's fine. Alright, now I'll try and do this as much as I can with... Anyway, so there's the back of the starter motor. And that's the bolt I'm going to undo now. I actually have loosened it already. And it's a 12mm with a short extension. This one, 12mm. And this is a 12-sided socket. Just if you can use 6-sided sockets, it's always better. 6-sided, it's better for getting on the socket if it's sort of a little bit of a different size. It gives you a bit more leeway. The difference is the 12-sided socket is you can put it on the bolt at smaller angles if it's hard to get to, but I prefer 6-sided. Anyway, undo that. I've already undone it, so I'll just take the ratchet off and turn the rest by hand. I've taken the nut off. I grabbed it in my hand at the same time. Put that on the ground and take this off. Do take this off before you unbolt the starter motor. It'll get very difficult otherwise. Got to pull that spade terminal off, which is very difficult. It is very difficult because I tried to pull it off yesterday too. So this is the wire, but you've got to actually get in there. There it is, all covered in oil. I don't know if the oil's actually gotten into the starter motor and ruined it. It may have done. But that's because of the rocker cover gasket. I've replaced it and it still leaked, so I still should have tried another one. But that's the wiring undone, just the 2 wires. And then, where are we? Another bolt for the starter motor. That one there. Do that right now. Right. I couldn't get a socket onto it. It's a bit of a tight spot in there. It sort of got on, but it didn't stay on very well, so I've got a spanner. It's still 14mm. This is going to work. And then I've just got to actually get it off. I can't do it one-handed, I don't think. Nah, way too tight. But I'll undo that. And then I'll take that bolt all the way out. That'll be fine. Right, there it is, I've taken it out. So taking those two bolts out was a bit difficult to get to, so it's actually taken me about 10 minutes. And I've gone and washed my hands. I've cleaned up the bolts, get all the old oil off, grease off, make sure they go back in nicely. So do that, clean all your bolts up, and get ready for the new starter motor to sit back in. It's a bit bright. Hang on. So this is the new one. Line it up. I've just got my other hand at the back of it and one hand holding the phone. And try and line the bolt hole up. Doesn't seem to want to line up. Maybe there's something else to do. I'll see if I can figure this out. Yeah, all it took was 2 hands to put it in, to level it up and slide it straight in. So continue to use 2 hands and hold it while you put this bolt in. Put it in all the way and don't tighten it up because you still need to line the other bolt up. And if you leave it fractionally loose, then the starter motor can still move around while the other bolt lines up. And then when you've got both bolts in all the way in, tighten them up. Alright, so I'm almost done. See if I can get a close up. That's all on. Put the boot back on the terminal. And put your spade terminal back on, those 2 wires. So put those 2 wires back on, I mean. And make sure your bolts are all tight. And we'll also put this terminal back on. I won't do it in front of you because I need 2 hands. I need one to disarm the alarm when it goes off on me, because that's annoying. And one hand to put it on, one hand to disarm it with the remote. And then I'll just tighten it back up. It's a 10mm spanner. Right, now this is the final test. Obviously we want to make sure this works. Where are we? Okay. Fingers crossed. Yep, starts the way it should. Thanks for watching. See you later. So this is the old faulty starter motor out of the car, and what some people might want to know is how did I determine it was faulty? The easy way to do this to see if the starter motor is actually not working, well, there's 2 ways. One is if you've got a test light, you can put a test light on there. There's a spade terminal, and when someone else will turn the key for you, obviously there'll be a wire on it still, so put it in the back of that connector and the test light will light up if someone tries to start it. And just make sure there's power on there at the same time. So check that one, power comes on when they try and start it, and then put the test light there and make sure the power stays there when they try and start it. And also to make sure that it's just not a flat battery, is turn the headlights on and then try and start it. And if it's a flat battery, the headlights will go really dim or not even turn on. But in this case the headlights stayed bright. This thing just wouldn't start. And the other way is to tell if it's your starter motor crook, and this can also help if you've got a wiring issue in the car. It's a little bit dangerous to do, so do be very, very careful, is to get a piece of wire long enough to come sort of out and back onto that one, So you get a piece of wire that you strip both ends and put one end in the connector that goes onto that, and then touch it on this one, and it will spark and carry on. That's normal. But if the starter motor is not trying to turn the engine over when you do that, and you just get lots of sparks, then the starter motor is definitely jammed up and no good. But if the starter turns over the engine, good news for your starter motor, because your starter motor is working. There's a wiring issue, so that can be hard to chase out sometimes. So make sure you check all your fuses. There's big fuses that sometimes control these things. But in this case, we worked out it was the starter motor. Henceforth, this is the old one, destined for the bin.